What's going on, guys? Bob Busker here at ThinkComputers, and today we have another Z170 motherboard. Here we have the ASRock Z170 Extreme 7 Plus. It sits as the highest motherboard in ASRock's Z170 Extreme line. So let's go ahead and take a look. So the board itself comes in ASRock's typical retail packaging. They've done something a little bit different. Usually most motherboard manufacturers have their boards sort of like this. They've kind of done it the long way here. So on the front, they are advertising their super alloy power, which is sort of their design of their motherboards. On the back, it goes into detail on all of the motherboard. And they actually show over here what they think this board is designed for, which is designers and enthusiasts. I don't know if that guy right there is what all designers and enthusiasts looks like, but that's what they have right there. So let's just go ahead and get in here. And we have a lot of stuff inside. So we have our SATA cables here. Looks like we have one bag, two bags. So we have two bags right here of SATA cables, two cables each bag, so 4 total right there. We have our bay device here, and we saw this with the Gigabyte motherboard as well. So we have a bay device, and this is a USB, I'm trying to get up here so you guys can see this. This is a USB 3.1 5.25-inch drive bay device, and what it's going to do, of course, is give you USB 3.1 on the front of your case, because a lot of cases, even new ones that are coming out right now, don't incorporate USB 3.1 yet. This does, and it uses a SATA Express connector, I believe, which is in this bag. Yes, it does. So you have all of that. We have our IO shield, which is kind of typical here. It is color coded and it is black, but we've seen a lot better from other companies on that. We have, it looks like just a power, a USB adapter right here, internal USB header adapter. We have these small bags of screws, which I'm assuming are to connect your M.2s. We actually have a bunch of bags of screws here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different bags with a single screw in each one. Those are probably for your M.2s that are on this board. We have your software setup guide and quick installation guide, and then in front of that we do have our drivers and installation CD. As I always tell you, be sure to go to the manufacturer's website and get the latest drivers, because the ones on this are probably outdated, and it's also easier to just download them instead of installing from a CD. And most people don't use CDs these days. And we do have a ASRock case badge in there as well. And then we have this small little guy in here, which I'm not sure what it is. This looks like a SLI bridge. It is an SLI bridge, and it is a single SLI bridge right here. Kind of a nicer one because it actually has a full, it actually has the harder PCB. It doesn't have the little ribbon cable, and that is basically it. And under that, we of course have our motherboard, which we're going to go over in just one second. As we take a first look at the board, you can see that ASRock has gone with sort of a matte black PCB with a darker gold accent here. So this is pretty much the color design that they're going to be using on all of their extreme boards in their Z170 line. Now we have 2 heat sinks right here that of course cover our power delivery components, and then you have a second heat sink down here with the ASRock logo, and of course the gold accent right there. You also have covering here, which is plastic, and that goes over your rear IO, as well as this bottom part of the board where your audio is. As we move along to the CPU socket, this is of course is Intel's LGA 1150 socket, which supports the latest Skylake processors. We have a 12-phase all-digital power design, and ASRock is making use of Nichicon 12K platinum capacitors, 60 amp power chokes, and dual stack MOSFETs here. We also have, it's kind of hard to see in the video, but right up where my finger is, we have our 8-pin EPS connector, and then you have a 4-pin CPU fan connector, and then your optional fan connector is right here. So you actually have the 2 fan connectors sort of spread apart a little bit. Moving over to the side of the board, we of course have our 4 DDR4 DIMM slots. And these are not color coded, but if you've installed dual channel memory before, you know which slots they go in. Of course, you can always refer to the manual as well. Also at the bottom, they don't have the locks on them, which I love to see, just because if you are installing a longer graphics card, it's harder to undo the bottom locks. They don't have those on there. Now this supports DDR4 memory up to 3866 megahertz with XMP profile, so that is quite high. Now starting at the top, we have another 4-pin fan header right here. We have a small little button, and this is your clear CMOS button. Love to see the clear CMOS button on a motherboard. It's so much easier than, you know, changing a header or, you know, switching the header. Having a button either on the board or on the rear I/O is ideal, and they have it here. We have our power and reset buttons right here. These are great to have on a board as well, especially if you have it in a test bench, which we always do with all of our motherboard reviews. But even just as a user, if you have it in a test bench, just so much easier than having to connect a power button. 24-pin ATX power connection, dual USB 3.0 headers, and then another 4-pin fan header. As we move down the board, we get to our storage connections. So we have 1, 2, and a third SATA Express port, and these are of course controlled by the PCH or the Z170 chipset. We also have 3 SATA 6 gig ports, or actually 4 SATA 6 gig ports right there, and those are controlled by the AS Media controller. Now, if you happen to not use SATA Express or don't want to use it or don't have a device to use it, that actually opens up 2 SATA ports per SATA Express connector. So you have 2, 2, and 2. So that will give you a total of 10 SATA 6 gig ports on this board if you wish. Along the bottom of the board is where you're going to find the rest of your headers and buttons and switches and all of that kind of stuff. So along the bottom here, you have your first set of front panel connections, and this is for your speaker and power LED. Moving over, we have 4 USB 2.0 headers. You have the rest of your front panel headers right here. You have 2 BIOS chips, which they look to be removable. So you have 2 BIOS chips right here, and then you have your BIOS switch, so you can switch between the 2 BIOSes. You also have a clear CMOS jumper, which is in addition to the button that's towards the top of the board. We have our TPM header right here, COM port header, and then at the end here we have our HD audio connections. Along the far end of the board is going to be the audio solution right here. And it's pretty much covered up by all of this plastic shielding and covering. But this is ASRock's Purity Sound 3 audio solution. And it is 7.1 channel audio with Realtek's ALC 1150 codec. Now right here, you can actually see the Nichicon Gold audio capacitors. You also have a 115 dB SNR DAC, a Texas Instruments NE5532 headset amplifier, and the entire audio solution has PCB isolation from the rest of the motherboard, so you have less interference. Now for expansion slots, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 PCI Express 3.0 x16 slots, and then you have 1, 2 PCI Express 3.0 x1 slots. Now as far as the x16 slots go, if you have a single card installed, it's going to run at x16 mode. 2 cards installed, they'll drop down to X8 mode each, and if you have 3 cards installed, it will run at X8, X4, and X4. The board also has full support for NVIDIA SLI as well as AMD's Crossfire. In between the expansion slots, we have a couple more things. First, and most importantly, is that we have 1, 2, and 3 32 gigabit a second Ultra M.2 slots, so you can really load this up with a lot of storage on the board itself, so you don't have to deal with extra drives or anything like that. So you have the 3 right there. Now in between these 2 slots, we actually have 2 Thunderbolt headers right there for an optional Thunderbolt adapter. There is also a mini PCI Express slot right here. So if you do have that installed with the Ultra M.2, your PCI Express mini card will go right here, and the Ultra M.2 will go that way. That is actually for an optional Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card that does not come with the board, but you can also purchase extra. And then finally, we have another 4-pin fan header right there. Finally, on to the rear I/O, we have a combination PS2 port, 2 USB 2.0 ports, DVI, DisplayPort, HDMI, There's two USB 3.1 ports. So below we have the Type A and right above we have the Type C. We have dual gigabit Ethernet ports, and these are Intel powered ports. 4 USB 3.0 ports, and then your audio. They also include this bracket here for the extra add-on card, which is the Wi-Fi Bluetooth card. Again, that is not included with the board though. So this wraps up our quick unboxing and overview of the ASRock Z170 Extreme 7 Plus motherboard. Now make sure you check back very soon on ThinkComputers.org, as we'll have our full written review. And remember guys, if you enjoy our videos, why don't you subscribe? Catch you guys later.